Salutations, hiker trash. The second greatest decision you can make in your life is to spend 6 months of it living out of a tent on one of the greatest backpacking trails in the world. One summer in July, some friends and I went to a favorite swimming hole in the mountains of my Northern California. And while we were there, we met some especially filthy hikers. And as we got to talking with them, they explained that they had been hiking from Mexico to Canada, and that this particular swimming hole was next to the famous Pacific Crest Trail, which they were walking. My friends and I thought that was just about the coolest thing ever. Having just heard about the trail right then and there, I decided that no matter what, I would do whatever it took to hike that trail. I still had a year of college left to go, so I did what any sane person would do and took 27 units of coursework to turn my year of college into one semester. I then spent the months between July and April meticulously researching and purchasing the most advanced and sophisticated backpacking gear money could buy. I watched every YouTube video. I read every Reddit article. I became obsessed in the most healthy and productive way imaginable. I spurned jump-starting my career. I broke the bank. I would miss the engagement of friends, but I was so compelled by the obligation of hiking that trail that it had become more of a holy vocation than summer recreation. I told people and they laughed at me. They called me stupid. They said I couldn't afford it, or I wasn't in shape, or didn't have the right gear. But for my part, I liked the way I was hiking the trail, or living my life, better than the way they weren't doing it at all. When it came to finally hiking it, what was there to say? In having just arrived at the southern terminus of the Pacific Crest Trail, I had achieved more than most would ever. If I had broken my leg then and there, I had still summited 9 months of preparation. But no ill fate befell me. I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail that year for 140 days until there was no more Pacific Crest Trail to hike. Why did I do it? And why should you? First of all, I did it because I had to. Walking the length of the American West felt, in one sense, as a rite of passage. Just as the pioneers would travel west to an unknown fate, I would travel north, and in doing so, perhaps capture some echo of empathy for their own plights. In another sense, it was an homage to my home. I had spent so many summers in and around the areas which I would find myself hiking. Granite boulders and ponderosa pines were reminders of the great freedom and joy I've experienced in being a young man from Northern California. Lonesome, still desert nights beneath a full moon haunt my dreams to this day and stir something indescribable in me. And it is some coincidence that I spent 40 days and 40 nights in the desert section of the trail. The majesty and the brutality of the High Sierra and Cascades evoked a deep sense of awe for all ordered creation in the very fog and sunlit days. When I fondly recollect the adventure, memories of scenic vistas and campsites, they all come back to me, and I ponder deeply over how those places had been there for millennia before me, still and untouched, and how they sit there now through every day and night that I do. And having none of these experiences beforehand, my will had still resolved to this one end. I had to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. I don't know you. You might not be a native of California like me, but wherever you are, there is a trail you can walk, and I promise you, the experience will move you in ways that are unknowable and which words cannot express. My advice to you right now is to begin making the arrangements to make it happen. I was fortuitous in being at the crossroads of college and a career and having some money saved. If you were like me, you might be thinking that you should save your money, establish yourself, and set out on the trail when you're thriving. And I do empathize with that concern. But I came to realize, and this is something that sticks with me, that all money can really secure for us is true value. And true value is better acquired in youth than in old age. That is to say, you will get more value out of the thru hike you did in your 20s than the one you do in your 60s or 70s. But even then, it's not too late. I met a couple in their 80s who were hiking the trail. In terms of time, there will never be a good enough time to do it. There will never be a point in your life where you have a flush checking account, no responsibilities, and no conflicting obligations. That is, unless you make it so. The unspoken beauty and life lesson of the thru hike is that in committing to do it, you will learn that you can make things happen if you put the effort into making them happen. What if you have children? I met a family of 6 that was hiking the trail. What if you're poor? Well, $10,000 over 6 months is almost certainly cheaper than whatever you find yourself paying over 6 months in the rat races. And I have known many hikers to hike the trail, gear and all, for less. You might have to budget to get there, but you're no stranger to prioritizing the things that matter. You might have a career, a mortgage, dogs. There might be no limit to the things you have to do, and there never will be, unless you do something about it. But why else did I do it? I did it to fully embrace the unknown. Beauty in the outdoors are all well and good, but what awaits beyond every bend in the trail, that is the true thrill of thru hiking. It's not even necessarily the trail itself, but what the trail itself brings out in you. It has been said that on a thru hike, your highs will be higher and your lows will be lower. There are mosquitoes, rains, injury, monotony, grueling climbs, heat, cold, filth. I remember a day in Oregon where every step I took for 14 miles sent a jolt of pain through my whole leg. But there were also sunsets, wildlife, wild flowers, and the most wonderful and exceptional people. Water that never tasted sweeter than when it was earned after a 20-mile day. Each of these experiences, compounded with the most visceral sensation of your life, will acquaint you with yourself better than most can hope to know. And you might be thinking, 2,000 miles of hiking sounds like you'll be able to solve all your problems. You won't. I bet you won't even solve one of your problems. I remember at mile 600 into one of my own hikes, a woman and I laughed at how we both thought the same thing, that we would solve our problems, but ultimately concluded that between the exhausting days, the dehydrating heat, and just the overall challenge of it all, we had not solved even one of the token problems we brought with us to the trail. But in being exhausted, dehydrated, and altogether spent in mind and body, that those problems didn't matter as much as we thought they did, or at least not in the way we thought they did. But it's not just a solo quest of self-discovery either. The trail is altogether a social experience, perhaps even more than it is a journey into remote and desolate places. You will share a common bond with people from all over the world, from all walks of life, with whom you have one thing in common: the trail you are hiking. I met people who had no job. I met oil barons. But we all shared in one common goal. One hiker I met, who was himself a military combat veteran, explained that the experience of thru hiking was to him not unlike the military, a group of people sharing a common, demanding experience, which brings out their best and worst. You share a common goal, common triumphs, common plights and loss. And after the trail, those fellow hikers will share a knowing empathy for one another of an experience which only they know as they return to their lives. And I always knew that this bond of unity was something I craved, but I did not know how much I needed it until I experienced it myself. So why should you hike 2,000 plus miles on a backpacking trip? I don't know why you should, or even if you should, but you do. You know that you were made for a greater purpose than to inhale and exhale, to collect, accumulate, consume, and die. You know that life is worth living, but maybe in trying to live it right, you've lost sight of how to do it. Thru hiking is not for everyone, but doing everything you can with what you got, that is for everyone. You were made with purpose to reflect your Creator's glory. You at least want to see what you're capable of. And I found that backpacking 2,000 plus miles has revealed that to me like nothing else could have. And if you have even an inkling of a desire to do the same, I'm asking you right now to make it happen. Thanks for listening.